it's Rowlands. I'm a nutritional balancing practitioner, and in this video I am going to just answer a question I got on email. The question was, what do you think the reason is that I have got visual snow? What does the disease tell me? I was very anxious all my life and had a lot of stress. It's an interesting question. I mean, no one really knows where visual snow comes from or why people get it. In general, what you generally find is that people, I would say 90% of the time, the information that I get from people is that people go through a tremendous amount of stress. It might be a job loss, it might be, basically what happens with the body is that the body does an excellent job of keeping itself alive, keeping itself surviving. Now, a good example of that is the liver can actually work with 2/3 of its processes pretty much not working or dead, and it can still function. I've actually heard a higher percentage than that. I've heard that the liver can be not functioning, 80% of it not functioning, and you would not get any symptoms. So the body does an excellent job of keeping itself afloat. Usually what happens when a person goes under stress is that the metabolism increases, adrenal glands start to secrete more hormones, the mind starts to work better, so the body will use like copper to keep the mind active, and often you don't get many symptoms, and people can go out like this for years and years and years, although the body underneath is actually like struggling under tremendous stress. And then I get people ring me up and they say all of a sudden, I just collapsed. They went out drinking and it was like, the final straw kind of thing. A good analogy that I like to work with is that the body's stress load is a little bit like balancing like a plank of wood between two rocks, and you put bricks on top of the plank, and the plank starts to bend and bend and bend and bend, and you're not really seeing the body snap, and then all of a sudden it just takes like one little brick. It might be a heavy night out drinking, or a job loss, or someone dying in the family, and then all of a sudden that plank of wood will just snap, and it's very, very difficult to get that plank of wood to come back together again. And overnight you'll see things like the oxidation rate, the metabolism will go from fast oxidation from when someone's under a lot of stress, just boom, straight down to slow oxidation overnight. The HPA axis of the body will just suddenly just flip out, and the brain will be sending weird signals to the adrenals and to the thyroid gland literally overnight. The nervous system can change from even sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic, but a very unhealthy parasympathetic dominance, because the body doesn't really have the correct means to even go into a normal fight or flight response anymore. It's quite interesting to see. So that's generally what happens. It's just an acute stress, and all of a sudden, boom, there'll be a click in the body, in the brain, that will just switch off, and you'll get like all the weird symptoms, and one of them is visual snow. A lot of people get visual snow from medical drugs, so Accutane, for example, can bring on visual snow. And I'd say a very small percentage of the time, 10% people get visual snow from TMJ and spinal misalignments and stuff. I talk about this a lot more in my video entitled Visual Snow and its relation to copper toxicity. Or I think it's called Copper Toxicity, likely contributor of visual snow, something like that. And I talk about all this in much more depth, so I'm not going to go into it on this video, but this is just talking about some of the reasons why people get it. An interesting theory that I've got is that a lot of people who've got visual snow are very sensitive souls, and they don't want to see the world for what it is, and what happens is that manifests in the eyes and creates a slight detachment from reality. Copper does this. It's like anyone that's more spiritually inclined generally tends to have more copper build up in their bodies. Copper acts as like a protection barrier for people that are sensitive, and what it does is it slightly detaches a person from reality. Some interesting new research that's been coming up recently is that everyone actually has some background residual visual snow. My personal belief is that everyone has a little bit of visual snow, because I ask people this You know, I ask people that don't complain about it, how do you see the sky? How do you see the daytime and stuff? And what I'm getting is that people generally see a slight bit of visual snow, and I feel that I see a slight bit of visual snow, but it doesn't bother me anymore in the daytime. And I don't think it really bothers me at night so much anymore, because when I ask people the question, is this what you see? Generally that's what people see. However, people that complain a lot about visual snow, I do find that they're also suffering from a myriad of other different things that affect the brain and the eyes, that are making that residual snow that everyone's got at a mild level, it suddenly becomes more heightened. So if you've got this residual background electricity snow, you know, that you find in any kind of electrics, believe, you know, if you look at a phone camera, it's got like a graininess to it, and even the very high quality cameras has a sort of graininess too. And I feel like it's probably some natural background noise that everything has. You know, when you're picking up electrical signals from the ether from around you. But what I'm basically trying to say is that if everyone has a small amount of visual snow, but you've also got candida, which is causing a detachment, parasites, heavy metals, copper toxicity, mercury toxicity, arsenic, you know, sugar imbalances, all of these is going to make your way of looking at the world not seem right, and this visual snow is going to become even more heightened. So that's what I found. Really, that's what happened with me, is that I dealt with all of these issues, and my visual snow improved massively to a point now where I don't see it in the daytime. Although I do see it a little bit when it's dark. I've been asking people questions on, is this what you see when it's dark as well? Normal people. And they also are asking the same thing. So I'm pretty certain now that my eyes are working pretty much the same as everyone else's do, if not better, to be fair. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. And yeah, thanks for watching.